Hello, Team Genesis Associates. Thanks for being with us this morning. For those of you who are brand new to these regularly scheduled meetings, my name is Janet Larson Meyer, and I'm an Executive Vice President here at CTFO. Last night, I had a last-minute idea I know you're going to love. I've invited my husband, Chip, to join us here today so you could hear from one of the best on how to overcome objections. He's made such a tremendous impact on my CTFO business that I thought I would share him with all of you today. Let me tell you just a few things about Chip before I turn this training over to him. Chip runs a small business here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Prior to that, he was a top performer at 2 multi-billion-dollar industry-leading companies. Those companies invested a lot in Chip over the years, and it paid off. During his career, he successfully negotiated several multi-million-dollar contracts between Fortune 500 companies. Now, let me bring Chip up so he can teach you how to be more persuasive by overcoming objections, which will help you personally as well as professionally. So listen up. I promise you there's something in this meeting for everyone. Take it away, babe.
Thanks, honey. What a nice introduction. I'm always happy to help however I can, and this is an area where I do have a lot of experience, so we'll jump right in and get right to it. So we're talking about objections and how to overcome them. So I'm going to tell you what they are and why they're actually a good thing. And then I'm going to walk you through a simple and effective process for handling objections that you'll inevitably get. And finally, we'll walk through some common examples together, and I'll show you how to apply that process. We're not going to be just giving you some clever responses so that when they say this, you say this, and then you expect that in an instant your quick and witted and snappy comeback is really going to change someone's mind. Usually doesn't work that way in reality. So we'll want to understand the process and dive a little bit deeper into it. So let's get started. All right, so objections. When we're talking about objections, we're really talking about part of the communication process that's involved in persuasion. And persuasion is about convincing others around your point of view or getting them to agree to something, often to do something. Objections are a normal part of that communication process when you're trying to persuade another person to do something. As Janet mentioned, I mean, this will serve you personally as well as professionally. This is a life skill that's essential for everybody, really. I mean, parents, coaches, CEOs, teachers, they all have to be able to do this. It's essential for leadership. Leaders persuade and convince others to follow them or do what they want them to do. I mean, just imagine if nobody ever had any objections to anything. You know, kids would do what they're told automatically. Employees wouldn't need supervisors, and CTFO wouldn't need associates. I mean, they could just put out there, hey, we've got this great CBD and it helps with all these things, and people say, oh, boy, there it is. I see the value in that, and I have no questions, and I see no possible issues with that. I'll just buy it without any concerns or needing any more information. So, you know, associates wouldn't be needed. So these are a good thing. During the persuasive process, you will inevitably come across objections. So don't be afraid of those. We're gonna talk through how to handle those and why they're a good thing. So first reason they're a good thing is they show that the person is interested. If they have no questions or they're not thinking about it and coming up with any reasons why they think it might not work for them, they probably don't have any interest at all. So first thing is objections show interest. They're a buying signal. They're an opportunity for you to then overcome their objections and move forward in that persuasive communication process. Important to understand that objections are not rejections. So let me say that again. Objections are not rejections. They're not saying no. They're saying, well, maybe, but what about this? And there's your opening. So that's when you want to stop, and we'll go through the process of how to overcome that objection. You've got their interest. They're giving you a buying signal. Now it's time to go through that. Now, I should point out that you may not be able to overcome every objection, and that's normal and that's okay. For example, maybe you find out when you're talking to them, you think, oh, this person's going to be a great prospect for CTFO and they could really use and benefit from our products. But as you get talking to them, you find out that, oh yeah, I've heard about CTO. In fact, my daughter enrolled me in this. I'm just getting started. Well, that's a valid objection, and you're probably not going to want to try to overcome that one and convince them to drop their daughter and join your team. So that's okay. This is a great opportunity for millions of people, but not everybody. All right, so the process of overcoming objections is really 4 steps. And people in professional sales circles, they call these steps different things, but they really come down to what I call LAER, which is listen, acknowledge, explore, and then respond. Too often people want to respond right away, and without really listening and understanding what the real objections are, and exploring that to find out what the situation is. That's all necessary before you just come back with your response. So you don't want to just jump to respond. So I'm going to explain each of those, and then we'll go through an example. So listening. When somebody brings up a concern that they have, they're saying, yeah, I'm interested, but what about this? You really want to listen there, and you want to let them talk. Communication, it's a two-way process, and the listening part is critically important. It'll help you understand what the real objection is. Then once you've listened, you repeat back what they say, you make sure you acknowledge it. Hey, okay, hey, that's a valid concern. I understand that. That makes sense. In fact, a lot of people ask about that. Just validate what their objection is, and acknowledge it. And then you want to explore. You want to get a little bit deeper into this. What is the real objection? A lot of times people will give you an objection, but it's really just to be polite because they really have no interest in what you're talking about. They're not convinced of the value of the product or the opportunity or something, so they'll just blow you off with some quick objection. But if you dig in, you can really find out what the real story is, and you can explore it a little bit. The other thing about that is when you explore it, you'll uncover more information that will help you give them the appropriate response. Everybody's different, and everybody's objections and concerns may be a little bit different. They've got their own personal reasons of why they think, well, I don't think that's going to work for me. Here's why. So listening, acknowledging that, exploring, getting a little bit deeper into why they think that may not work for them, and then responding is really your best approach for overcoming objections. So let's go through an example of this. Janet tells me that it's common in CTFO to hear, well, I don't want to be a salesperson. And maybe you come back with something like, well, you're not selling, you're telling. See, it's okay. And they say, oh, silly me. Okay, now I'm 100% on board, and I'll start telling everybody about these products everywhere I go. Well, that's not likely to happen, right? that quick response isn't likely to turn them around on a dime like that. So you want to go through the process with them and listen. So in this case, let's demonstrate that. So they say, I don't really want to be a salesperson. So you listen and acknowledge that and say something like, oh, you don't want to be a salesperson. Well, hey, I get that. A lot of people don't want to be a salesman, especially we don't want to sound like a used car salesman, right? I mean, they get a bad rap. And so tell me a little bit about that. What do you mean when you say you don't want to be a salesperson? What makes you say that? Well, I don't want to be pushy. Oh, okay, I get that. And nobody likes pushy people. Totally with you. What else? Is that it? Well, I think that if I'm being salesman-like, they might think I'm insincere. I'm just pushing something on them that they don't need because I'm going to make money at it somehow. Oh, okay. So you're concerned about appearing insincere and you don't want to be pushy. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Okay. Well, hey, I get that. You know, I don't want to be pushy either, and nobody likes pushy people, and insincerity is not a, you know, characteristic that anybody admires. So, you know, is there a, well, let me ask you a question. So what we're doing is we listen, we acknowledge their concerns, and we're exploring this a little bit. So what if, now I would say something like, well, if there were a way to help a loved one without being pushy or insincere, would you be willing to consider that? Oh, yeah, I think I would. Okay, well, could you tell someone about something that would help them, and could you be generous, genuine, and sincere? I mean, I just did that with a friend of mine who was having trouble sleeping. Janet just told that story on your Wednesday night webinar. I wasn't pushy or insincere. We were just having some small talk, and he mentioned, yeah, you know, I'm kind of tired. I don't sleep real well. And, oh, really? So, you know, how many hours you get a night? And yeah, you know, he started going into it. And so I told him about Janet's story, and I said, you know, my wife used to have serious trouble sleeping, and she discovered something that really helped her. Have you heard of CBD oil? You know, I heard something about it, but I don't really know much about it. I see it advertised places. Oh, well, let me tell you, it's this all natural product, and it comes from the hemp plant, but it doesn't, you know, went through the whole thing. And boy, it's really helped, made a difference for her. And, you know, here I am just talking to my friend, being very sincere and very, you know, not being pushy at all. And he says, yeah, I would like to hear more about that. And the next thing you know, he's calling us and telling us how much he loves the product, and he's an associate, and he's starting to tell his friends and people he knows about it. So that's a quick recap on how you can do that, and then you would go through that with them. So is that something you can do? Yeah, I think I would be able to do that. Okay, so you've responded to their objection after you listened, after you acknowledged it. We explored what the real issues were. They thought they didn't want to come across as pushy, and they didn't want to come across as insincere. So once I got that all figured out, then I responded and said, okay, well, hey, what about if you wouldn't have to be pushy and insincere? And then I told a quick story about how I just did that. I wasn't pushy or insincere, and the person was really grateful. You know, how about that? Oh, yeah, I could do that. Okay, great. So that's just a quick example of overcoming you know, an objection, a real objection that you guys get a lot with that 4-step LAER process. Listen, acknowledge, explore, and then respond. Okay? So we start out by understanding what objections are and that they're part of the persuasive process, and it's actually a good thing. They're not rejections. Then we went through a process of overcoming that. And you know, I've used this. Janet mentioned a little bit about my background and career. This is the exact process that I was trained on and used many times to put together multi-million-dollar contracts between Fortune 500 companies. And it's exactly the way I handled objections when they came up. So at this point, I'd like to dive into some common examples that Janet tells me you guys get a lot when you're introducing this opportunity and talking with people about your products and about the great business opportunity. One of the top ones she tells me is that people say, well, I just don't have time. You know, I don't have time for one more thing. I work full time. I've got kids. They're involved in sports. You know, I've taken care of my elderly mom, something like that. I'm just too busy. I don't have time for this. Okay, so let's take that one and go through the process. So first thing I'm going to do is listen. Just let them talk. The more they talk, the more information that they're going to give me, which helps me understand what the real objection is. So I'm going to listen while they tell me everything about why they're too busy. Then I'm going to acknowledge that. Wow, yeah, it sounds like you've got a lot going on. Kids, sports events, a full-time job, and then you've got, you know, needs of your elderly mom on top of that. Wow, yeah, I can see you're pretty busy. Yeah, this makes them feel pretty good and validated, like you actually listened and you're not one of those pushy salespeople that's just trying to cram some information at them as fast as you can. You are listening and understanding and having a dialogue here. Oh, okay, well, you know, let me ask you, this is where I'm going to now start to explore. I've listened, I've acknowledged, now I'm going to start to explore. You know, how many kids do you have? Oh, you know, 2, 3, whatever it is. They're into soccer. One's got karate. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, so I'm getting more information. So is time the only issue? Let me ask you if, you know, we talked a little bit about the products. We talked a little bit about how you could make extra money at this. And, you know, you seemed like both of those two things you're pretty excited about that, but, you know, it's just a time issue for you. Is that the only issue? It's just finding enough time? Yeah, no, I mean, your products sound good, and you know, I've had some people tell me that CBD's made a big difference for them, and you know, everybody can use some extra money. So yeah, no, if I had more free time, I'd do it. Oh, okay, so if you had time for this, you'd like to have a business like this? Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, you know, tell me about your time demands a little bit more. It sounds like I may actually this may actually be a solution for you. So now I'm going to respond and say, what if this didn't take extra time? And this could actually be your answer to having more free time. What do you mean? Well, you mentioned that you know, you're at work a lot. So you talk to coworkers and, you know, you talk around the water cooler or coffee breaks or whatnot. So you interact with a lot of people at your office, right? Right. Okay. And then you've got kids and you're at all these sporting events, karate, kids soccer games and whatnot. You're talking to other parents and you know, you're on the sidelines while they're getting ready and going through. Yeah, I chit chat with other parents. Okay. Well, when you're talking to these friends' parents or your coworkers and they mention an ailment or a problem that our CBD products, you know, could help with, and you're already talking to them anyway, it would take no extra time to bring up these products and share some stories in the conversations. I mean, you're already talking to them anyway within your busy schedule. Could you just introduce this into the conversations that you're already having with people so that it didn't add one more thing to your busy schedule and take up more additional time for you? Oh, I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, I'm talking to these people anyway, and if they mention, they may, have some kind of a condition, pain, inflammation, a knee injury, and this could help alleviate some of that. Great. Okay. Well, there's a way that you could actually start introducing this to people without having to spend extra time at it. You can just do it in the conversations that you're already having in your busy world with your, other kids' parents, your coworkers, any friends and conversations you're already having with family and friends. So I see a real way you could do this without having to invest any extra time in it. Oh yeah, I guess I could do that. That sounds pretty good. You know what else occurred to me when you were telling me about your busy schedule? It made me think of my business partner. Her name's Janet, and she started out doing this as just a part-time thing around her busy schedule. She's got kids and grandkids, and she was working a full-time job as a marketing director. And she started just first she told her brother, then she told a friend of hers, and then she told her daughter, and she starts out with those few people, and then within 6 months she was making more money just part-time doing this around her work schedule, that she realized soon she was going to be able to quit her job and free up 50 hours every week for her, because she made much more money at this, just doing it as a part-time thing, than she made as a director for a naturopathic and pain relief center as a director of marketing. So this actually became her solution to have more free time. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and you've got way too much going on and you don't have time for one more thing, you could first start it with around what you're already doing so it doesn't take up extra time. And then it may actually become a solution like it did for her to free up more time and eliminate all the burdens of your regular job. Is that something you might want to consider, or is that, oh yeah, wow, that'd be amazing if I could make more money at this and quit my job. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're there yet. Well, hey, neither did Janet, and for a lot of people, it's just a part-time thing while we're doing. All right, so I spent a lot of time going through that example with you just to show you and illustrate the concept of listening, acknowledging, exploring, and then based on what I learned in the exploring for what are their particular objections and the reason they don't think they have time for this, that gave me the opportunity to then respond properly. Now, you won't always have a quick response right then and there to appropriately, turn somebody around like that example. Sometimes you may need to do a little bit more research. So maybe you hadn't heard Janet's story about that and you're thinking, oh man, yeah, this person is pretty busy and whatnot. So it's perfectly appropriate to say, to do the listening, acknowledge, oh boy, yeah, sounds like you're really busy. Explore it a little bit, and hey, if you had more time, is this something you might be interested in if time wasn't a concern? Yeah, I would like to do that. Okay, well, you know what, I know there's a lot of busy people at our company with some pretty hectic schedules, and they're really enjoying helping people discover the benefits of these products, and they're really loving every Wednesday when they get a notification that they just got another deposit into their account, and they're making extra money at this. So if you're interested in those two things, let me consult with some of my associates and find out a little bit more about how they handle it, and then I can get back to you. And maybe there's a way that maybe I could bring you something that might enable you to start this or put a toe in the water without having it become an extra burden of time. Would that make sense? And then schedule it for a little bit later. Follow up with them at a future date. If you don't have the right response right then and there, you may need to think about what they told you. You may need to consult with a couple other people and get their thoughts and ideas on it to help you formulate the right response to truly overcome that objection, not just overcome it in the moment and get them to move past it, but actually get them to understand and realize, and maybe share a story like I did about Janet, about somebody else who has done that. So we covered a lot. I think we've got a little bit of time. We can go through a couple more examples of this and apply it. So another one that I hear a lot when Janet's on speakerphone talking to people is, and we touched on it earlier, I'm not a salesperson. So we went through just briefly how to overcome that. We talked about ferreting out the objections of, I don't want to be pushy, I don't want to be insincere. So you can work on that and practice that when that one comes up. The main point is to understand what the real objections are, and then listen, acknowledge that, explore, find out what the particulars are, and then respond to that. We talked about a way to do that earlier about, hey, I don't want to be pushy and insincere, so hey, well, what if you could do it without being pushy and insincere? I mean, I just told my friend David about this stuff. He mentioned he was having trouble sleeping. I told him about the CBD oil and sleep spray, and now he's calling me and thanking me about how well it's working for him. Is that something you can do? So that's just a way to overcome that common one that you get about, I'm not a salesperson. Some other ones Janet tells me you get are things like, I've never been successful in network marketing before. Okay, well, there's an opportunity to listen and again, acknowledge, hey, I get it. A lot of people have tried things and they haven't worked out. Then you can explore that a little bit. You can find out, was it, why do you think that is? Why didn't it work out for you in the past? And let them talk, listen, and acknowledge that. Maybe it was a bad product. Maybe the timing wasn't right. Maybe they kind of got in too late when the market was already saturated and there was a ton of competition. If that's the case, or maybe they worked for a company that had, a bad reputation, and, you just mention the name of the company, and that's enough to kill the deal and turn people off right here. Oh, no, thanks, not interested. So that wouldn't be the case here. So when you listen and acknowledge that and explore that, and you find out, oh, all right, so your timing wasn't right, or they didn't have a good product, or something like that. Well, if I could show you that those aren't issues here, it probably wasn't you. The reason you didn't succeed there was because you didn't have the right product or it was bad timing. Here, you've got amazing products and perfect timing. You're at the beginning of what's going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry for a lot of reasons. Would you, would you be interested in hearing more about that, and maybe understanding that if it's not you and it's just that those weren't the right opportunities for you, it may not be that you can't be successful in network marketing. You may very well be successful if you're with the right product, the right company, and you've got the right timing, which this absolutely is. Oh, okay, yeah, maybe that makes sense. And you can walk them through and get some agreement on that, and then respond and show them why your products are not what they were selling before, how the timing that they experienced before is not the case. That's not the problem now, and you can help them move past that and move forward in that communication process where you're persuading, you're helping and convincing them. They want to make more money, they want to get the benefits of the products, and you can help them do that with a persuasive approach like this. So practice it. It's not it's just like anything. When you do it for the first time, it's always a little bit more difficult. I mean, I'm a downhill skier, and I didn't start out going up to the top of the mountain down the black diamonds. Nobody does that. You start out in the greens, and then you graduate to the blues, and then you move up to the blacks after you've practiced and gotten comfortable with this. So it's just like any new skill. You want to practice it, and you want to apply it, and you'll get better and better at it. So don't be afraid of it. You'll welcome these objections. Again, these are a good thing. These show interest. They show their buying signals, and they give you an opportunity to persuade by listening, acknowledging what their concern is, then exploring, finding out more details. And then once you have all the information and you understand why they're thinking that this may not be for them, then you can, come up with your appropriate response and share that with them and get agreement to move forward. Or like we talked about earlier, maybe there's a good reason that they can't do this. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, maybe their daughter's already enrolled. Okay, well, they're probably not going to be a good candidate for you to try to overcome their objection and persuade them to ditch their daughter and join your team. So there's a lot of reasons that maybe it doesn't make sense for people. But once you go through this process and you understand what it is, you'll be much more effective with all the people where there is a good reason. They just need your help to uncover and see what that is. So practice what you learned today. Be patient. When you're listening, be real and relational. Understand what they're saying. And, a lot of times people have, experienced real losses by just jumping in and saying yes to something too fast. So it's a good thing when they're deliberate and they're thoughtful and they're thinking of, well, wait a minute, would this work? Maybe it wouldn't. What about this? But those are all good things. So remember that all persuasive people who can convince others to see their point of view or get agreement on something will come across objections, and you need to be effective in handling those. So that's all we have today. I want to thank you guys all for your time and for letting me share a few insights and experience I have in this issue, and I really hope that it'll help you with this persuasive communication process that you're practicing, and you'll be able to bring the benefits of these products to more and more people, and actually start to have fun in that process when objections come up and people give you reasons why not. You can walk through and have a dialogue about that, and when the opportunity is available, you can convince them see the value in this. So I wish you all well and wish you success. That's all for today. Look forward to seeing Janet on Wednesday night for your next Zoom webinar. Thanks, everybody.